Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Gift and you're welcome to Gift and See Culture. So in today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to draft a strapless bustier rather. So if it's something you want to learn, please kindly stay tuned. Thank you. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can always get notification whenever I post a new video. Thank you. So welcome guys, this is the outcome of the pattern we are going to draft. So after I finished sewing, I had to wear it so I can know how it's going to be. So first of all, I divided the paper, the pattern paper into two, and from there I drew the lines. So as you're watching this, please kindly subscribe to my channel if this is your first time, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Thank you. So I later on I connected the lines together. So from there I measured 1 inch, which serve as my top line, which is going to actually did that to get my shoulder, so I can take my shoulder measurements from there. So from there I measured my full front length, which is also called the half length. Alright, just like what I did, I indicated the front and the back to differentiate it. So from there I measured my full front length, which is 17. Alright, so note my full front length is different from my nap to waist. Like my full front length is different from my nap to waist. My nap to waist is 15, which is for the back, then the front is 17 because of the side dart. Alright, so after doing that I went down. So from my full front line, which is my waistline, I measured 8 inches, which happens to be my hip length. The same thing I did for the back. I measured 8 inches downward, which I did for the back too. So from there I connected the lines together. So after connecting the lines together, I had to draw and I had to extend the length so I can connect it properly. So after doing that, I went away. I measured 1.5 inches, which served as my shoulder length. Alright, 1.5. Alright, so the first line is the top line. You can use half if you want, but I usually use 1. So from there I measured, you can see where I place the tape roll. So from there I measured my bust point, which is 9.5. So from what I'm doing right now, I indicated the bust line at the full front line and the hip length. So from there I went up by 2. I went up from my bust point, I went up by 2 to indicate my chest line, which is indicate my across chest line. Alright, from there you can see I just marked it now and I connected the lines. So from there my shoulder is 12.54. I divided my shoulder by 2, which happens to give me 6.2. Alright, so from there I bring it down. I divided my neck by 8 plus 1 and I divide it again by 2. Okay, that's I got that 2.5. So from there I connected my shoulder to my across chest. So from there I had to go and measure my bust line, just like what I did. I divide my bust by 4, my waist by 4, and I divide my hip 2 by 4. So my bust is 34, my waist is 28, and my hip is 36. You can see the way I connected the lines from my shoulder and my bust to my hip, not from bust to waist or shape. So from there I divide my bust span by 2, which is 7. So I divided by 2 and I got 3.5. So from there the distance I had, whatever distance you have from there, actually got 1.7 rather. So that 1.7, that is what I'm going to use as my dart. So what I did is I divided by 3, which happens to give me 0.6. So that 0.6 is where I shared and I connected the lines. So from there, to get my armhole contour, I had to divide the distance from my across chest with my the distance from my across chest to my bust line. So whatever I have, I divided by 4. I went up to get the shoulder length. So from there, I take in by 0.3, so I can get the so I can contour it very well to get the armhole curve. Alright, so from there, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel so I can always get recommended by YouTube. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you are learning. So just like that, I was able to get 8 inches for my armhole, which is actually correct. You know, I'm not fat. So from there, and beside, I'm not using armhole for this. I'm not using it, just a strapless bustier. Alright. So from there, I measured my under bust, which is 12.5. Remember, my bust is 9.5, so my under bust is 12.5, and I connected it. So I went up to measure my side bust, which is 2 inches difference, just like what you see me did. After I connected it, I went down to my under bust. The difference between my bust and my under bust is what I share to get the under bust tightening. Alright, whatever I have, like the difference is what I have. For example, my own was 6. I divided by 6. Okay, so that's what I did to get my under bust tightening. From there, I divided my shoulder into 2. I went to my shoulder slope, I divided into 2, which gave me 4.5. So I divided into 2, which I have 2.2. So from there, I went down to my chest line, and I added half inch on both sides to get the upper bust tightening. So that's what I added. I had to the that I removed is what I added from, you can see. So from there, I connected my lines properly, and from there I had to remove the dart because I'm going to cut it away. I'm reducing the dart all the way down. Alright, just like this, I'm going to cut it away. So after doing that, I went out to confirm my measurement, which was okay. So the next thing was for me to add the seam allowance to it, and that's all. Alright, so from there, I forgot to mark my under bust. Alright, so that's what I just did now. I indicated it. That serves as my under bust measurement. So from there, I went to connect my bust so it can align together. I added 1.5 as my sewing allowance. So from there, in order to get the neck, I brought it down from my armhole by 1 inch, and from my neckline, to get the depth of my neckline, I measured 8.5 actually. Alright, to get the neck, because that's what I wanted though. So from there, I went around to cut it out. I almost forgot to put my seam allowance, so I went back to add my seam allowance, which is 0.5. You can see the way I had to include the dart. Okay, you can see I had to include the dart so that it won't add to my measurement, just like you see me doing. You place your table like that. So from there, I cut it out. Remember, we are going to cut the dart out, the side dart, the center dart, everything we are going to cut out. Actually cut the armhole for people that will be using yoke. All right, so you can place it back, but for this tutorial, I'm not using yoke. All right, so from there, you can see I'm removing all the dart that I cancelled. That's what I'm doing. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get notification whenever I post a new video. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Alright, So I went to decide that. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm getting rid of all the darts there. So I went to decide that and I close it just like that. I use my tape to close it just like what you see me do. I make sure I close it properly so that the dart will not have anything to affect the bust. So I had to trim off the, so after that I noticed that the side bust was kind of pointy. I had to bring it down by half inch. I cuff it by half inch so that my bust will not be pointy. So I checked the center front too. I did the same thing. I didn't really let's say 0.1 just to make it smooth. So that's all for the front. All right, the next thing is to cut the back. So I went in to cut the back. After it's just the different the back is not really much, does not really have stress. The first thing I did was to cut the shoulder slope. All right, to measure the shoulder, and I connected it by 1.5 just like the way I did, and then went down to measure my bust line, and I added half inch to it. All right, just like what I did for the sewing allowance. So I went down by 9.5 to get my bust line just like the way I did in front, so we can have the equal measurement. From there I went down to, the front, the back, there is no under bust. So I went down to the bust, then my nap to waist, which is 15, which I've already indicated, and that's it. So the first line that you see here is my across back. Note, my across back measurement is different from my across chest measurement. Across chest measurement is for the front, while across back is for the back. So I measured my across back, and then whatever I had, I connected it by, to contour the arm, or the distance from my across chest to my bust line, I divided by 2. So that's what you use to contour the armhole. So from there I went down to my bust line. I connected the lines. I use whatever I have. I use my across back measurement instead of my bust span. You can use your bust span though, but for the sake of this pattern I use my across back measurement, and I divide it by 2 just like what I did. All right, I divided by 4, sorry. So just like what I did, and I got 3.2, and I share it just like I share it. So I went back to measure my darts. Whatever I had, I divided it and by 3. That was how I share it on the lines. So to get the from the zip back, instead of adding the seam allowance, instead of removing the dart from this side, I had to go to the back so it can give me that effect. It's back, so that when I fix my zip it will be able to lay properly. I went down there to do it. After cutting it, you can see it's not really stressful. I added my seam allowance 1.5, which is 1.5 all the way down. Sorry guys, I just have to do it because of the timing. All right, so I brought it down from my armhole. I brought it down by 1 inch just like what I did. I went down to my neckline to get the depth of my back. So I actually used 9.5, so that I did that so that it won't be showing my back too much. All right, and then I cut it out just like the way I measured the front. I use the 2.5, bring it down by 2 inches. All right, and then connect it just like you see me do. So from there I didn't really take time. I had to start removing the dart. I removed 0.6 from the back, and then the other one from the center back. All right, so if you follow this method, definitely your zip will not be bulging. That's what I want you to know. just share the dart like that, your zip will not be bulging. So now I'm getting rid of the dart. You guys know that I don't really like that. I don't have that energy to sew that and iron it, so it's better I remove it. And it's always like my outfits are always okay even without that. So I went out to cut it, you can see, just to join it. So I had to indicate the zip side because both the center back was kind of the same. So and just do the same thing, just indicate you have to add 0.5, which is half inch to it, like when you are sewing. So after that I went ahead to cut the fabric just like you see it on the screen. Okay, so after cutting the fabric I added the zip line to the zipper allowance. Please don't forget I did that. So I went ahead to cut my lining too because I wanted it perfect. After I finished cutting line, I went ahead to cut my paper stay. Since it's my clothes, I didn't use a stay though. I used paper stay for both the front and the back, and after that I went ahead to gum it. Actually use wording. After I finished sewing, you can see the way I iron it. I use my cushion to iron the bustier properly, though it takes time. Oh. So after I finished ironing, I had to reduce the lining by 1 inch, so that they actually did that so that the lining won't be coming out, won't be showing. So after I finished cutting it, I went back to sew. So the first thing I did was to sew the neckline. I didn't use half inch to sew the neckline. I actually use 0.2. How do you get 0.2? You just divide, just like dividing your half inch by 2. So that's how you get 0.2. That's the measurement I use so that the neck won't be too wide. So I maintain that all the way. I sew both the front and the back together. And after I finished sewing, I went ahead to iron my clothes. Please, when you are sewing, don't forget to cut off the thread so that it will make your work to be neat. So after I finished sewing, I went ahead to iron it. I make sure I notched it. I notch it properly so I can top stitch it. I actually top stitch the lining. After I finished top stitching, I went ahead to iron it properly. I took my time to iron it very well because ironing gives an outfit a good finishing too. So I make sure I cut my thread. After that, I went and ironed it. After ironing it, it was time for me to sew the down part that I trim off the lining. That's what you see me doing. So after I finished that, I went and ironed it back again. And then after that, I was able to measure and fix my zip. Thank you for your time.